right, that takes us to our discussion topics. We're going to move some stuff around and we're going to hit these two. Right off the bat, let's talk about definitions. What is alpha? What is beta? And normally, what is early access? So right off the bat, let's say that what is alpha? Like, what is it actually defined as for a programmer, for a developer? Alpha means that your product is feature incomplete. At the end of alpha, your product should be feature complete. What is features? Features are your game loops and your pillars of the code base, which support the underlying project. So, for example, you have to have, instancing worked out. That's a feature. You have to have, the UI worked out. That's a feature. You have to have sort of the planet tech and the all of the things that support the base game. Those are features. But also game loops are features. So mining, bounty hunting, mission systems, etc. Those are features. So that's why when people talk about the fact that Star Citizen, for example, has been in alpha for forever, they're saying because it's playable now, they let you in, you can play it, but it is still an alpha project because it has mining, it has trade, it has cargo running, it has bounty hunting, but it doesn't have medical play. It doesn't have salvaging. It doesn't have exploration. It doesn't have multi-systems. It doesn't have, not from the game loop side, but from the underlying support of the code base, it doesn't have server meshing and persistent servers. It doesn't have multi-systems. There's things it does have, things that it doesn't have. That is what alpha means. Now, when Frontier, well, actually, hold on. Let's jump to beta. What does beta mean? Beta means that it has all of those features that I just mentioned, but it is not content complete. So it has, the mission system, and it has the servers, and it has the bounty hunting, but it doesn't have all of the specific missions that touch on the persistent system and the mission system and the bounty hunting system. That it takes those three features, puts them together, and creates missions for you to do. So that is sort of alpha and beta. What is early access? Well, originally, what early access was, our game is done, pay us a little extra money, you get early access to the completed game for this fee. This has quite sadly evolved across the industry. This is not Frontier's sin. This is the sin of the entire video game industry. It has evolved into a process whereby you charge money for people to be your not only unpaid, but they paid to get in beta testers. With that in mind, let's discuss the Odyssey development and alpha. Ends in May, has no beta, launches on May 19th, that had a paid premium for the early access, halfway finished alpha. So when they first announced this, Frontier announced this and they said, hey, this was like in November-ish. They were like, hey, they had that video game thing. It was a video game something where like a lot of whatever. And that day, like an hour before that, they announced, we are going to have early access alpha testing come blah, whatever, that you pay now and you're going to get that first. They didn't mention a beta. And everybody was like, well, what the hell is this? And the way that it worked out is everybody sort of, and I could be wrong, maybe you're like, you're full of shit. Not the people that I talked to, they didn't think that. But the people that I personally talked to, and please explain to me if I'm wrong, the people that I talked to, they all thought, okay, there's been so much backlash in the games industry lately among people that are charging for early access betas that Frontier decided to get around that by calling it an alpha when really, come on, let's be honest, it's just you get to see the beta early. That's what everyone I talked to. Turns out we were wrong. We should have trusted Frontier and taken them at their word. It for sure was an alpha. They weren't done making the game yet. So what we thought was there were going to be 2 rounds of beta. There was going to be one round that was called the early access alpha, which is this is beta for people who paid money pay the extra, whatever, 20, 30 bucks to get it. And then there's the regular beta for all the plebs. That's what we thought was going to happen. What turned out happened was, what we got was not even a complete project alpha, like this is alpha that is done, we're ready for you to test it. What we got was a branch off of the trunk, which was old, semi-feature complete, but not feature complete alpha. And they were like, go play this for a month in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. And then they announced on the live stream that we just had this Tuesday, oh, by the way, that wasn't even the whole stuff. You didn't see the stuff. We got better stuff. Don't worry. Don't complain. All of your complaints are irrelevant because we've got way better stuff. Tens of thousands of fixes you haven't even seen yet. Here's the problem with that. Number one, as Wolf pointed out earlier in the show, you didn't test those fixes. Not really, not wide. Number two, you charged us for an alpha, didn't include all of the full loops, and then told us, submit bug reports or complaints or, tell us what doesn't feel right or doesn't whatever. Well, if it's not finished yet, half of the shit that people were spending their time and effort to document and to show you and say, this doesn't make sense. This is a menu option that leads to nowhere. This is a thing that doesn't work. This is a game loop that doesn't work. You then respond back with, oh yeah, we know we've got a way better one in the other thing. Don't even worry about it. Well, then what did I just spend all my time filling out reports on? If you were going to sell us on an option on a thing that was half done, you should have told us that so we could have decided whether or not we wanted to buy in. And then fair is fair. It is what it is. You pay your money, you take your chances. But all of that, sort of the game standard, the industry standard is the way that works is you do the alpha. When the alpha is done and you have your features ready to test, then you bring people in if you want to do an alpha test. Normally, alpha tests are done internally, like just with company people and friends and family who test it and say, this game loop, this is broken, this doesn't feel right, this is whatever, and you focus group it and you test it. Then you spend anywhere from 30 to 90 days polishing and optimizing, and then you bring the masses in on the beta, which says, the loops are done. We figured out our games loops. Now we're just figuring out the minutia of missions. Do they pay too much? Do they pay too little? Do we need more missions for this? Do we need less missions for that? Do we need more funneling into these loops and less funneling into those loops? Do we need, what is the minutia of not the game loops, not the features, but the content? So features are the broad strokes, content are the fine strokes. And when you show it to the public, that's when you're talking about, hey, how is our content? Does it feel right? Do you feel like you're getting paid too much for this and not enough for that? Does this part bug you? Does the ship transfer part? Like, we figured out how ship transfers works, but now we got to figure out the times. Okay, the transfer mechanism is in place, but you tell us, does it feel like 5 minutes is too long or 5 minutes is too short and 20 minutes is too long? Should we move it to 12 minutes? Like, that is the fine strokes of sort of fixing that. What Frontier did was said, we're going to bring you in for the alpha that's not even really feature complete. We're going to skip the beta and just fucking YOLO this. And when alpha ends on May 5th, 14 days, 2 weeks exactly later, on May 19th, without a beta, like literally Art said on last Thursday's stream, we've decided not to do a beta. Without a beta, we're just going to launch this bitch on May 19th and fingers crossed, YOLO, hope for the best, because Frontier is super known for being able to quality test, QA test all of their stuff. And for sure, this game isn't super, intricate and in depth. So since it's so simple, I'm sure it'll work out for the best. Wow, that fucking melts my mind.
Elite is taking the approach of allowing the community to shape the future of the game. And people are taking that as the developers being lazy, but really what it is allowing is for a more hands-on, community-based, and not to overuse a kind of a relic term, but like grassroots approach to how the game will grow after the launch of this expansion.
So real quick, I 100% agree with you that Elite needed commander feedback, needed player-based feedback on the alpha section of it. But I would state that the way to do it would be, to get community feedback on the alpha stage for about a month, and then take 30 to 90 days and optimize and tweak it and like polish it, and then release it to a second beta phase for about a month, and then go back for 30 to 90 days to tweak it and whatever, optimize it, yada yada, and then launch. What they're doing is half of an alpha, get access to it because you paid money. 2 weeks later, release it without a beta. YOLO, let's hope for the best. All right, Roy.
Just a couple quick questions, and these are more rhetorical because I don't think we can answer them until after the 19th. But my first question is, why have a closed beta, which is in effect what they've done. They've had us pay for an open alpha, or a paid alpha, if you will, and they've got the trunk beta going in the background, and they're keeping that to themselves, and then that's going to get pushed out on the 19th. So why would you do a paid alpha, paid public access alpha, and then have a closed beta? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, unless there's some other agenda going on. And closely related.
Spoiler alert: the agenda is that their end of fiscal year is the end of May. Go ahead.
That's the running conspiracy theory, which may not be a conspiracy. Yes. And then why not share that the trunk was separate? Why let that out this Tuesday instead of just making that known like that? I don't understand that. There's something else going on there. What happens with issue tracking and development resources after May 19th? Are we going to continue to see a flood of things being tracked and worked on? Or which in effect means, what do you call that? Is that continuing the beta? Is that just we got a really buggy launch and we're working on it?
That's I'm not going to
I'm not going to get too wrapped around the axle about it. We'll figure out what happens post May 19th. But here's the thing: judgment will happen. Whatever this thing is on May 19th, people are going to judge it. It's not to get upset now, but people are going to remember, however this turns out the next time, whether it's the next iteration of Elite or the next game that FDev puts out, if it captures some of this same audience, they're taking some actions and showing some behaviors here that are odd, and they've chosen not to explain them all, and people are going to remember that.
Yeah, just real quick, I agree with everything that's been said, but I kind of believe that they probably planned on a beta originally with the original time frame of releases and everything, but then COVID happened. Now, I'll preface this by saying I don't buy COVID as an excuse for the total delay and everything, but I do think it slowed things down quite a bit and probably rushed a lot of stuff as far as developing. So I think all of the beta and the alpha kind of got scrunched together and the release, and it just moved everything up with the time schedule. Otherwise, I think if it had everything gone as planned before COVID was ever a thing, we might have seen a beta, but times are what they are.
Fair enough. I'm just going to sum this subject up and say that I think that basically they rushed the hell out of this, and what we're going to get is a massively buggy mess on May 19th, which is, let's be honest, situation normal, all fucked up. The big question is, what do they do after that? If they spend the next 6 months going back, putting in work on it, getting the features first, right, i.e., they literally just said, we're going to throw out the plant gun because people don't seem to like it and we don't have time to do anything better. Like, no, you can't have an elite rank in, I pointed a fucking thing at a thing and then, I win. You have to have some gameplay somewhere, somehow in that process. You need to have some thought to all of this stuff. So if they spend the next 6 months working on those things and fleshing those things out, I think, honestly, in the end, Elite will be known as, or Odyssey will be known as a project that was released half-baked, but then made good, they made good on their promise of, we're going to give you a thing. I think it's been pointed out multiple times by multiple people, including myself, that the framework, the bare bones of Odyssey, the walking around, the yada, 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 the planet tech, these are great. These are actually could be great. The actual sort of how they went to focus all of their time, which is gut every game loop that's not FPS, that's a rough choice. But if they spend the next 6 months, they can make it right. Be thought of well 2 years, 3 years from now. If they don't, if they spend bad money after good, continually chasing making the top tier FPS game, which they will never achieve, Odyssey, I believe, will go down in history as the thing that took Elite from greatness to meh.